Hey, listen up. This video is a critique, which is considered fair use under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. California is owned by Mark Hoppus, Travis Barker, Matt Skiba, producer John Feldman, Foxy Studios, and BMG, which is a subsidiary of Sony Music Entertainment. This video is for entertainment purposes only, and I do not claim to or do not own any of the content used in this video. Hello everyone, this is Justin from Subvoid Media, and today we've got a very special video for you. It's our Christmas Eve early Christmas present. We're going to be doing an album review of an album that I've been putting off the review for quite a while now, and that is California by Blink-182. Now, I originally intended to upload this review after the Blink-182 rant video that Mason and I are currently working on. But with the project half finished, I decided, nah, I'm just going to finish it because it's Christmas Eve and I spent all the time after work playing video games. Anyways, enough of my banter. Without further ado, let's get right into this review. That rhymed. Alrighty, so how I have this album review planned out is first I'm going to talk about the album as a whole, how I feel about it, and then I'm going to move on to individual songs and even the artists themselves. So let's kick it off with my, review and my opinion of the album itself. I would say you could sum up this album with one word: generic. It's a really generic sounding album, which isn't a good thing. Like, the whole point of artistry is to be unique. But I think part of this generic sound has to do with the fact that Sony Music Entertainment, they're the guys who are the label for this album, for Blink-182. And as you probably know from history, anytime a band signs with a label, they have to slob the knob of this label and do whatever they say, or else they fear being dropped. And I feel like that's part of why this new Blink-182 album sounds generic. Don't get me wrong, Matt Skiba and Mark Hoppus are big offenders in why this album sounds generic. And we all know, all of us Blink fans who follow all the gossip know that Mark has been trying to push in this generic path a lot longer than we like to admit. Now, you're probably wondering, what do you mean by generic? Like, generic is such a generic term. And I don't like using the term generic in reviews because it's an illegitimate argument. So, I'm going to go into more detail on what I mean by it sounds generic. Now, what I mean when I say it sounds generic is it sounds like they took a nice pretty little cookie cutter, one of those little metal things in a shape that you can put the cookie dough in and make it a, whatever the shape is. They use that when writing these songs. All the lyrics are repetition, they are simplistic, they are uninspired, and they're just lazily written. Like, you can't get by making a song about just repeating the same generic phrase. Oh, there I go with the word generic again. Now, it's kind of hard to pick an example to use for this, so I'm just going to say bored to death. The lyrics are very simple. There's a lot of repetition. No, She's Out of Her Mind's a better example. Repetition abused in that song. Now, I know I said I'm going to go to songs later, but I just had to use that as an example, so if you just listen to that song and then listen to what I'm saying, you'll understand. The lyrics have no depth. They have no emotion. This is for all the songs, not just She's Out of Her Mind. They just sound very cliches, just like, here is a formula. My name is Sony, here's a formula. Write a song that incorporates all of these traits, and we'll publish it for you. And that probably explains why they were able to pump out 16 songs on this album, is because they were given a formula. They just said, hey guys, write songs like this, here's your demographic, we understand that you're about 20 years older and have more life experience than these people, but we want you to go ahead and cater to them by writing songs that have this kind of message. And the message of these songs is unclear because it's just someone talking about things that kind of just doesn't happen. Like, she's out of her mind. They talk about this girl who's out of her mind. They're falling head over heels in love. Whatever. I understand that. That's something that happens to people, but it's just one of those things that's been so overdone. The music market is oversaturated with things like that. And that's why this album is uninspired and generic, because it simply just follows in the footsteps of bands who have also sold out, like Green Day and Fall Out Boy. Um, and with that being said, another major complaint I have with this album is it feels like they're catering more towards new fans. Like they're trying to pull fans from Fall Out Boy, All Time Low, even A Day to Remember, because they toured with them. And that really angers me as a classic Blink fan, because we are the people who made them who they are. But they're just throwing us away for these new fans, because these new fans have a literally physical larger demographic. There's more of them. And that's why they're trying to maintain their fame by appealing to the people who they appealed to in the past. Like when I was younger, I was the main demographic for Blink 182. Well, some of it. It depends. If you knew my age, you'd understand what I mean. But them betraying their classic Blink fans and trying to go after these new fans is one thing that you can definitely tell is going on in this album, with just the way the songs are written and what they're about. I mean, I know that was kind of scatterbrain sounding, but I think I pretty much got the point across on why it's, quote, generic. But another complaint I have with this album is that everything sounds the same. Matt Skiba sounds like Mark Hoppus. It's just generic power chords that are overused because they're used multiple times in each song. Like, I'm pretty sure he has the same riff going in at least 3 or 4 different songs. Actually, you know what? Listen to the beginning of San Diego. Listen to the beginning to Bored to Death. I'm actually going to play them both for you right now. Just listen to this. Do you see what I mean? They were the same. They literally recycled the same riff on 2 different songs in the same album. That, to me, is a sign of lazy songwriting. But now that you got that out of the way, that kind of sums up how I feel about the album as a whole. I'm just going to go through bullet points just in case you didn't want to listen to my ramble. It sounds generic, and I explained why, which is due to the record label giving them a formula and them not really trying to write the album. They are trying to appeal to a new demographic. The lyrics are cringy. It's all power chords. There's not a lot of variety in the way that the music's written. And the lyrics are just bland and uninspired. That's kind of how I feel about the album. Now, there is one plus, because a review wouldn't be fair if it was all negatives. There's 2 pluses, actually. A few of the songs do resemble Plus 44 songs, and that kind of throws me back. That's part of the nostalgia goggles. That throws me back because Plus 44 wasn't necessarily bad. They had more bad songs than good, but I think that it was interesting. And another positive is that, you know, they did try to go back to old Blink, and it was pretty sad. But the fact, I give them an A for effort, because they did they projected the same message that old Blink did, but they just did it in the wrong place because they're 45 years old. Alrighty, now I'm going to go ahead and talk about individual songs and the musicians themselves. I don't have a lot to say on this. This is going to be the shorter part of the review. Not the shortest, but the shorter part. Let's start with Matt Skiba and Mark Hoppus. Now, the one thing that all classic Blink fans loved was that they sounded different. If you listen to California all the way through, Mark Hoppus and Matt Skiba sound almost the exact same. Whenever Bored to Death first came out, I didn't even know that Matt Skiba sang in that song. I didn't know, because they sound the same. And that being said, that kind of takes away from the whole point of having 2 vocalists, in my opinion. That's my opinion. Because look at bands like Old Blink, what's another good example? Taking Back Sunday. The guys from Taking Back Sunday they sound similar, but they don't sound identical. And the difference in sound and the difference in tone is what helps keep you interested throughout the songs, and what keeps the band interesting as a band. Now, with Matt Skiba sounding too close to Mark Hoppus, it kind of kills it. One plus I do have to say about Matt Skiba being in the band, though, is that, well, while he does sound very similar to Mark Hoppus, there are 1 or 2 occasions in a couple of songs where he sings in a different pitch, which kind of adds variety to the song, but generally, overall, he sounds identical to Mark Hoppus. Another downside, not downside, excuse me. Another thing I have to say about individual songs is that, well, like Bored to Death is probably the best song off that album simply because it was released as a single early on and we all got accustomed to it. Songs like Built This Pool suck, in my opinion. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, they're just satirical, they're supposed to be funny. Yeah, but that's not something they should be doing. Like, come on, they're 45 years old and they have a lot of life experience, and Blink-182 has gone through a lot of evolving, but I feel like they're de-evolving with songs like Built This Pool, She's Out of Her Mind. One major thing about She's Out of Her Mind that I do like to mention, which we mentioned in Blink-182 rant, which hasn't been uploaded yet, is that they recycled the same music video 3 times. They did it Man Overboard, What's My Age Again, and She's Out of Her Mind. Recycled it 3 times. Is that okay? Like, that's just proof that they're lazy. But that one song, just because of the fact that that music video is the same that's it's been used 2 other times, is one thing that really makes me dislike the song, as well as the fact that it's heavy repetition and, you know, very simple lyrics. Like, I don't know, when I listen to music, I listen for tone, I listen for depth. I want lyrics that matter, have emotion and meaning behind them, that tell a story. And that song tells no story other than this bitch is crazy. Anyways, like I said, I don't have a lot to say about individual songs or individual people that I haven't already mentioned, so we're going to go ahead and get to the final verdict in the very end of this review. So here we are in the final verdict. My final verdict for this album is a 4 out of 10. Now, I gave it a 4 out of 10 because I'm trying to judge it as unbiasedly as possible, and I'm just looking at it at face value. I would give it a lower score if I was trying to be biased, because obviously I'm a classic Blink fan, but I just think that this album doesn't live up to what Blink-182's made in the past. Even within the past 5 years, I still think it hasn't added up to the same thing. Can't even hold a match to it. Anyways, if you guys have any recommendations for an album, music, video, whatever you want me to review, games, whatever, drop a comment down below. And if you like the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Later.